Jericho, welcome back.
Hi, good to be back.
Yeah, you've got a silver tooth.
Yeah, I went away for 2 weeks and now I'm a pirate.
Yeah, looking good. Welcome everyone back to Girl Boss Radio. We're in the thick of the holiday season, and we have a really exciting interview with Lisa Price from Carol's Daughter. But before that, I want to talk about ShipStation. ShipStation is the fast and easy way to manage and ship all of your holiday orders from one place. So whether you're on Shopify, Squarespace, Etsy, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, or over 100 other popular selling channels, ShipStation allows you to bring all of your orders into one easy-to-use interface, which makes it super easy to manage from any device.
And then what?
Well, then you create shipping labels. So you can create labels from UPS, FedEx, USPS, my favorite, and they'll even help you choose the right carrier to get the lowest rate for every package. So no wonder it's the number one choice of online sellers. I wish I had this when I was on eBay. The world has changed.
Can we use ShipStation to send all our holiday crap?
Yes, of course. I have it at my ready. It's on my phone right now. And you can try ShipStation.com for free for 30 days. And get an additional month free only if you use our exclusive offer code. What is it, Jericho?
It's Girl Boss.
Don't wait. Go to ShipStation.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone on the top of the homepage and type in
Girl Boss.
That's ShipStation.com. Enter
Girl Boss.
ShipStation.com. ShipStation. Make ship happen. Success. It's such a complicated idea, and yet for so long we've all collectively subscribed to a single definition of the word, which was likely given to us by a white-haired dude somewhere in a boardroom in the 1960s. And there's nothing wrong with that definition, with the notion of climbing a corporate ladder with a singular focus. But it's time to make space for a few other definitions, for side hustles and well-being and failing forward, and for the idea that success is a wild ride, not the destination at the end of it. Join me for a journey into the lives of women who are redefining success and paving the way for others with grit and grace. I'm Sophia Amoruso, the founder and CEO of Girl Boss Media, and this is Girl Boss Radio. From her tiny kitchen in Brooklyn with the simple notion that people should follow their hearts, Lisa Price transformed a hobby of mixing up fragrances in her home into the multi-million-dollar beauty empire we know today as Carol's Daughter.
Well, I started out with making fragrance oils because I loved fragrance. And I had read an article about Prince, and Prince was and still is, even though he's not with us anymore, one of my favorite musicians. And I'd read this article that he had a fragrance bureau on his dresser, and he would mix different scents on his body at the same time to create a unique scent. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is a great idea. Like, I won't smell like anybody else. I'm going to mix, fragrances and create scents.
With just $100 in cash, she began by selling her homemade beauty products at flea markets and out of her own living room as the demand increased. In 1994, Lisa officially launched Carol's Daughter, the company lovingly named after her mother. Initially starting out with a handful of steady customers from her neighborhood, almost overnight, celebrities became loyal customers. And investors, names like Will Smith, Jada Pinkett-Smith, Jay-Z, and Mary J. Blige came knocking.
Will and Jada were already using the products, which was great, so they were familiar with it. Jay-Z hadn't used the products. He and Beyonce were together at that time, but most of us didn't know that. That was when, they didn't talk about their relationship. And Beyonce knew about the products, and Jay-Z's mom knew about the products. And he liked the fact that I was from Brooklyn.
In 2014, Lisa sold the company to L'Oreal. She remains devoted to the brand and continues to play a major role in the entire product development process. Today, Carol's Daughter sells millions of dollars worth of hair care and skincare products, selling at CVS, Target, Walgreens, Ulta, and on HSN. So grab a pen and paper, because you might want to take notes. Today, we'll talk to Lisa about how she transformed her hobby into a full-time, multi-million-dollar gig. But first, back from an epic first American Thanksgiving and a big birthday and some time off, is Jericho Mandy Burr, editorial director at Girl Boss.
Hi.
Hi, Jericho.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm 32
We missed
now.
you. You're what?
I'm older and wiser.
Did you say 32 or 40?
32.
I thought you said 42 as a
42?
joke.
Oh my god.
32. Wow.
Yeah. So mature, I know.
I know. Your hair is like just so much more
Gray.
grown up looking, and you got a silver tooth.
Yeah.
What is it serving a purpose, or is it just cool?
It's purely for fashion.
I like it.
Thank you.
I like it. Real pirate.
Mm-hmm.
She's a real pirate, guys. Even though you've been gone, we've been up to a lot on girlboss.com, which I want to talk a little bit about because it's the holiday season and now is the time for gift guides.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's all about presents. Presents to the left of me, presents to the right. I'm excited.
No time like the present.
My presence is a present.
Yeah, my
Kiss
present
my ass.
is a gift. So, lucky for you, we just started doing a series of gift guides that are actually helpful and don't include anything embarrassing, crappy, or that you might want to throw away or re-gift.
Yeah. It's only the most carefully curated, coolest stuff that you really, really want to shop for the people you love or yourself.
And what we really want to do is help take some of the stress out of the holiday shopping season because it's supposed to be a time to just spend and enjoy with the people that you love, not make you go broke or worry if someone's going to think you don't love them enough because you got them the wrong thing. Or
I hate it. Like, everyone in my family gets so stressed out every year on Christmas, and it's supposed to be like the time of celebrating and love, and it just becomes the time of like stress shop.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can help, and we have like a whole series going. We're going to be doing a bunch a week, presents for all kinds of people, starting with your best friend.
So what kind of gifts are going to be in these gift guides that you're talking about, Jericho?
We have gifts for all the people in your life, from your most staunch feminist friend to dudes, because we all know a few of those things. Presents for productivity, presents for self-care, presents for people based on their star sign that don't include like random like gold pendants that just say the name of their star sign, even though they're great and I have one. Presents for people in the office that you're forced to interact with, presents under $10, basically a gift guide for like every kind of person that you need to shop for. So they're going to be rolling out from basically now. So
Amazing.
Keep an eye out.
Well, I'm ready to start shopping, and you know what Kanye West says about presents?
What?
He says, I'm living in the future, so the present is my past. My present is a present. Kiss my ass.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Jeez, what a sweetheart. As most of you guys probably know by now, we've teamed up with our friends at Pinterest to give your hump day a kick in the butt. So hump day, we all know, is Wednesday. Yes, it's the day this podcast drops every week. Like clockwork, you're welcome. But we encourage you, our listeners, and ourselves to try something a little bit outside of your comfort zone as a way to make small life changes that can make big results in the long term. And if you come along for this ride with us, you can win some amazing prizes. The next Girl Boss Rally is coming in March of next year in Los Angeles, and you and a friend may have a chance to come together for free to the next Girl Boss Rally in Los Angeles. We're also giving away 3 signed copies of the Girl Boss Workbook each and every week. And that's not all. We are featuring you on social media and on girlboss.com. So here's how it works. To enter and to just have fun and to use your brain and to dream up your future, each week we're assigning you a new challenge. And then you get to head over to Girlboss's #WhatIfWednesday Pinterest board to start mining it for inspiration. So get out there and do it for yourself. So Jericho, what is this week's question?
Oh my God, here we go. What if you invested in your personal growth by mixing things up a little? And yes, that is a pun because we're asking you to do things a little differently, starting with your taste buds. Mixing in some turmeric into your morning coffee or making your own energizing mocktail at lunch. Switching things up, mixing different stuff in so you get some fresh perspective and like drink something really tasty.
So this is a lot like the other weeks.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't get to the smoothie challenge, if you didn't get to the lunch challenge, this is an easy one. We are all mixing different supplements into our drinks, coffees, it could be ghee, whatever it is. Get inspired on our Pinterest boards at the Girl Boss account, and then take some inspiration and share a photo on Instagram. Use the #WhatIfWednesday, #MyPinterest, and #GirlBossRadio, and we'll share your contribution, and you might just win a prize. So, drink up. So last week, Ariel K of Parachute Home was on the podcast with me. How
The
lovely.
Ariel K of Parachute?
Yes, and she brought the softest towels I think I've ever felt. I DM'd her afterwards, and I was like, because I have Fretta, which is like towels you buy in Beverly Hills because I'm a chump and did that. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I'm throwing my Fretta in the trash. That's what I said to her because they are so soft, so goddamn soft. And I know that you love sleeping on parachute sheets.
Do I ever?
And there's nothing better than the gift of something soft on your skin. I'm a Taurus. I like touching soft things. It's not even about luxury or how much it costs. I just like nice things because I was born in April. Mm-hmm. And Parachute Home fills that need for me. So if you're thinking of something to buy for the holidays, parachute sheets and towels are the perfect holiday gift. They're super soft, comfy, and cozy, and they're not made with any harmful chemicals or dyes, so it's all good stuff. They also have the perfect bathrobe, bath rugs, hand towels, washcloths, and they're made in Turkey using the finest long staple cotton sourced from the Aegean region, which I think is where my ancestors are from. Anyway, they're super clean, beautiful, minimal style in natural color palettes that will go with your Instagram-worthy home and make your bathroom even more photogenic. So visit parachutehome.com/girlboss for free shipping and returns. Parachute offers a 60-night trial. So if you don't love them, dry off, put your clothes on, and then pop it back in the mail. You can send your order back with no questions asked. So again, visit Parachutehome, PARACHUTEHOME.com/girlboss for free shipping and returns. Now, Lisa Price, founder of Carol's Daughter, with how she turned her side hustle/hobby into a beauty revolution. So I want to start, I guess, at the beginning with your childhood. You were born in Brooklyn and raised in Brooklyn?
Yes, technically the hospital that I was born in was in Manhattan. It was Beth Israel Hospital, but I came home to my parents' apartment on Van Buren Street in Brooklyn, and my grandmother's house was down the street on Van Buren Street. My Aunt Sylvia's house was right next to my grandmother, and I actually live in my Aunt Sylvia's house. My husband and I bought the house from her and my Uncle Robbie when they decided to relocate to Atlanta, and we've been in our home for 21 years now.
Oh my gosh, wow, real heritage.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that in California. And you went to school in New York as well.
Yes. I went to parochial school in Brooklyn when I was younger, and then when it was time to go to high school, I went to the High School of Music and Art. It's now School of the Arts, but back then we had Music and Art and Performing Arts were two separate schools, and I went to Music and Art.
Wow. So did you have dreams of being on a stage, of being a concert pianist or a tap dancer?
I sing, and I was a voice major at Music and Art, and I wanted to go to college and major in music and minor in theater. My dad had other plans for my college career, and I ended up studying pre-law, and then I never really finished because I hated law so much. But yeah, I didn't get to pursue the theatrical dreams.
Do you ever feel like you have some kind of like FOMO for not having pursued? It's like, it's funny when you achieve as much success as you have, but you still are like, I mean, I have moments where I'm like, I never went to college.
I do feel a little, well, not as much now, but I used to feel kind of guilty that I didn't finish college. Like it felt like, because for me, it was a big failure at the time because I was always this really great student, with straight A's and, so I wasn't supposed to flunk out of school. I was supposed to finish college and be super successful in that way. And I carried a lot of guilt when that didn't happen. But now I just understand that it wasn't what I was supposed to do. And in a way, it was my very first lesson in not doing what does not feel right to your spirit. Now, that wasn't something that I could say to my parents when I was 16, because I graduated high school early. So I couldn't say at 16, oh, you know what? I'm not going to listen to you, and I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to study this, and this is what I'm going to do. But I learned what it feels like when you do something that your spirit is just not in tune with, and how awful that is. So I knew not to repeat that feeling. So now I appreciate the experience, and I don't feel guilty about not having finished college anymore.
That's great. What other examples do you have of following, of saying this is just really not right for me, even though it is maybe the best thing ever? Wow, I'm in a great school studying law, After that, is there another time in your life where you can remember something like that happening?
Well, once I was actually in business, there were a number of people that worked within the company who actually had business in the beauty industry. I didn't. Before I started my company, I worked in television and film production, and I didn't know anything about the beauty industry. So when I had, an operations person and a finance person and a marketing person who had all of this experience in this field, I would defer to them and their opinions on things, because I thought, well, they know better because they've been doing this longer. But sometimes in those situations, I would sort of have this gut feeling like, well, I don't know. I don't know if our customer would like that. I don't know if that's really on brand. But then I would talk myself out of it by saying, well, you don't have 10 years experience in this industry. Maybe they're right. And I learned that gut feeling does mean something. And at a minimum, you should at least speak up. I still might acquiesce to someone else's decision based on the argument that they make and the facts that they provide. But if I don't at least speak up, then I have no defense later when things fall apart, because I sat there worried and I was quiet. So now when I'm in those situations, I say, okay, wait, I need you to explain it to me, because I'm not really understanding exactly why we're doing this test or why we're going to do it this way, because I would do it this way. So what's the difference? And, then it gets explained. And depending on the explanation, I'm like, okay, you know what? I understand what you're saying. That makes sense to me. And then we move forward. But it took time for me to learn that, because I would be more quiet and just sort of say, oh, okay, you must know better. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have the opposite problem, and I'm just learning to listen to people and realize they might have something to offer. But I'm an only child. So you dropped out of law school, and what did you do next?
I did a lot of very interesting jobs. I worked as a data clerk at American Express back when paper was king, and when people wrote into the credit card company, there was a letter that said, you screwed up my bill, and all those things had to be filed, and then the files had to get transferred to microfiche. So who even knows if this department exists anywhere ever again. But that was my first sort of, job in a corporate type environment. I did not fit in at all. I was a very quirky, kind of weird person, and I marched to the beat of my own drum. And I ended up losing that job after about 18 months or so, maybe about close to 2 years. And I did an assistant teacher gig for about a year and a half. I did some babysitting for about a year and a half. And then I ended up working at the UN. So when the UN has the General Assembly, they hire supplemental staff in different divisions. And I had a family member who worked at the UN, so she was able to bring me in for the interview process. She couldn't get me a job, but she could get me on the list to go through the interview and testing and vetting process. And I worked at the UN for about 4 or 5 years. And then I ended up working for Health and Hospitals Corporation. And I felt like when I got to Health and Hospitals Corporation, I sort of decided, okay, you have to be an adult. You have to be responsible. You can't do all this flitting around, nonsense. You have to have a real job. And I had a real job at Health and Hospitals Corporation, and I was an executive secretary. And I really didn't like my boss. I had moved around a lot within the division that I worked in, and I had worked my way up to executive secretary. So I had a decent salary at the time, and, it was a city job. So, you had your medical benefits and your vacation and things like that. But I just didn't like my boss very much. And we had a bit of a riff one day when he threw a piece of paper at me because I typed something incorrectly. And I refused to cry in front of him. I just would not let that happen. So I went to the bathroom and did that. And then I came back to him with the paper corrected. And, I had never spoken up to a boss before. And I said to him, I understand the error that was made. And I understand that error was my fault. But your reaction was not the reaction that I should have gotten. I said, I don't make mistakes usually. And it was a minor mistake. Yes, it was my mistake. Yes, if you hadn't caught it, then your information would have gone to the wrong place. But throwing a piece of paper at me is completely disrespectful. I have never disrespected you working with you, and you're not an easy person to get along with. So I expect you to apologize to me for throwing a piece of paper in my face, and I am apologizing to you for typing a typo. And he looked at me and he said, you're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, bye. He didn't want me to stay in his office anymore. But that was a lot for him to apologize. But that encounter, I just said, you know what? I need to do something different. I can't work with someone like this. And as soon as I sat down at my desk after this whole thing with him, my girlfriend calls me, and she was working on The Cosby Show at the time. And she says, send me your resume right now. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, send me your resume. They're hiring writer's assistants. And that was my entry into television and film production. And I was in that career for 7 years before I left it for my business.
Wow. And what were you doing at The Cosby Show?
I worked as a writer's assistant, which is not assistant writer. A lot of people think that that's the same thing. But a writer's assistant at that time was someone who would go into a room with the writers when they were working on the show, and we would take notes. And so they would sort of like act out the show and call out lines to each other. And they would say, Cliff is going to say this and Claire is going to say that. And then Theo is going to come in and this is going to happen. And so there was somebody there just taking the dictation, taking down the notes. And then we went and actually turned it into a script. So a script has to be written a certain way so that stage directions can be understood. Props knows what they have to buy. People know who's exiting, who's entering, who's in the scene, what wardrobes are needed. Like everything for production comes from the script. So we would prepare it, and we would also do research. If there were things that they wanted to talk about, you might have to do some research to find out, okay, if a child has dyslexia, what does that mean if they're going to a private school versus a public school? Do they need a tutor? Is there medication involved? And, we would go get information for the writer so that they could craft these ideas.
So what was it like to work on that show? Was it inspiring? Was Bill Cosby nice to you? Did he leave you alone?
Yes, he definitely left me alone. That was not my experience with him. And it was a great learning experience. One of the biggest lessons that I learned, not just from Cosby, but it started with The Cosby Show, was what it feels like to work at something that you love to do. And up until that point, I had always had jobs, and jobs were different. You go to work and you clock in at 9 and you clock out at 5 and, you just have your job. But when you really love what you do, you don't mind that you have to work really long hours, and you don't mind that sometimes you have to come in on Saturday, and you don't mind that when all of your friends are off on Columbus Day, you actually have a table read with the cast. And, I worked 20 hours a day and I didn't care. So it was not that I knew it at the time, but it was that experience of feeling what it's like to be an entrepreneur, learning what it's like to sacrifice time with family for work, to sacrifice your weekends for work. And that was great for me. It was great watching Mr. Cosby work. Unfortunately, that's not something that I can really talk about now, because I would never want to sound as if I'm defending, the behavior that he's been accused of, because not in any way, shape, or form is that the case. But working in that environment with him and the way that the show ran there were opportunities to see people get to do things that they normally wouldn't get to do. You know, a stage manager getting to direct just because somebody opened up that door for them to do that. And then to be a part of a show that was such an important part of television history, and then an important part of African Americans within television history being portrayed in the way that we were in that show. That was great for me. But my television production career wasn't just with Cosby. I was on the Cosby Show for 2 years. I worked on other productions, not as well known, but other productions. And the best experience was, again, knowing what it was like to work at something that you love and how that feels in contrast to just doing a job. And also being able to work in an autonomous way, because I was not a good person to be micromanaged. I loved having that freedom to do the job that I needed to do without someone hovering over my shoulder. And that's how TV and film production is. You really have to think on your own and get the job done. And the creative part of it, knowing that there was a routine to what you did. You had a table read on Monday, you had rehearsals on Tuesday and Wednesday, you had 2 shows on Thursday, you edited on Friday. There was a routine, but it changed every week because the show changed every week. So that creative aspect was something that I found that I really needed. And I thought that was going to be my career, that I would work in television and film production and I would figure out how to make money doing that because I loved it so much.
Lisa Price lives by the mantra, follow your heart. She realized corporate life and traditional jobs weren't right for her, and she moved forward even though there were risks.
Well, I started out with making fragrance oils because I loved fragrance. And I had read an article about Prince, and Prince was and still is, even though he's not with us anymore, one of my favorite musicians. And I'd read this article that he had a fragrance bureau on his dresser, and he would mix different scents on his body at the same time to create a unique scent. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is a great idea. I won't smell like anybody else. I'm going to mix, fragrances and create scents. And at first I did that with things that you could buy at a department store. And I would layer different things together and come up with different concoctions. And then a friend of mine told me about a place in Manhattan that is actually still in existence. It's just in a different location. And it's called Exotic Fragrances. And it used to be at 96th and Lex, right by the train station. And now I think it's at 104th and Lex. But he told me about this place, and he was like, you can go in there and you can buy all of these oils, and they're wholesale. So you have to spend $40 in order to purchase, but you would just have so much fun there. And I literally came home from work, and I lived on the Upper East Side at the time, and I got on a bus and went there and bought a bunch of stuff and came home and started to blend oils together to make fragrances. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if my lotions could smell like this, and, shower gel. So then I went to the drugstore and I bought travel bottles at a Duane Reade, and I bought unscented lotions and things, and Lubriderm, and I shook up my oil inside of the Lubriderm and it didn't mix well. And then that lended itself to, well, what if I made my own lotion? Could I make lotion? How do you make lotion? And I started to just play around, and I was out one Sunday with my then boyfriend, now husband, and we were in Park Slope, and I walked into this new age bookstore, and I found this book on essential oils, and that book had some recipes in it for massage oils and balms and baths and, different things that you could make. And that was the beginning of me making things. And I was not thinking about it as a business at all. And I think because I loved my job, when I was not working, I didn't have that, oh, thank God it's the weekend and I don't have to do anything kind of feeling. I still felt, happy because I liked work. So when I was off from work, it was more about being creative and not, escaping. And I just started experimenting and making things. And it was something that I did as a hobby and a craft. And I made things for friends and for family. And in May of 1993, my mother just said, you know, St. Mary's Church is going to have a flea market in a couple of weeks. You should see if you could get a table and sell. And I was like, sell what? And she said, sell your moisturizers. They're really good. They're nice. I think people would buy them. And I was like, really? You know? And she was right, of course, because mom's always right. And I called it Carol's Daughter because when I used to make things, well, it was who I was. I was Carol's daughter. My mom's name was Carol, and it's who I was. But when I would make things and, you know, give them to people, you know, who were family and friends, somebody might say to someone else, oh, that smells really good. Or, you know, what are you using on your skin? Oh, you know, that stuff that Carol's daughter makes, you know, because I was Carol's daughter. So I, you know, made some handmade labels for that first flea market, and I made up a batch of butters and I took it out to sell. And I sold all of the butters that I brought with me. And I got a flyer for another flea market that was coming up in a couple of weeks, and I wasn't working because at that time production in New York would slow down between like end of May, and it wouldn't pick back up again until August, September. So I ended up spending that whole summer just doing different craft fairs and flea markets that I would hear about. I would take my little card table out with my shopping cart and my stuff, and I would set up my table and sell and collect addresses and phone numbers, and people would call me to refill. And once the weather got cold and there weren't as many, you know, craft fairs and things like that, and I went back to work on a production, people began to shop in my home when I wasn't at work. They would call and set up appointments, and bit by bit, it started to grow into my side hustle to my television production career.
There's an old saying, don't quit your day job. One of the tricks when turning a side hustle into a full-time gig is knowing when to take the leap. Timing is everything. So how did Lisa know when it was time to turn Carol's Daughter into her day job?
I started selling in 1993, in May of 93, and by March of 96, I had left my job. No, February of 96. I was a month away from giving birth to my first child, and I had basically done the math. If I continued to work, my paycheck would have to go to the babysitter, because the way that I had been working at that point, I had gotten a television gig that was pretty normal in the realm of television production jobs, where I got to work at 9. I was done pretty much 6 o'clock every day. I had worked out my schedule that I only worked Monday to Thursday, and my assistant covered the work on Friday because Friday was like our prep day for the following week. So I trained him so that he could do that work, and I would work my business in the evenings and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So in order for me to keep up that kind of schedule, even after I had a babysitter would be at my house like 8 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, which would make no sense because then my son wouldn't even know who I was. So logically, it made sense for me to give the business a go at being my source of income and my contribution to the household, and giving up the television career once I was about to become a mom. So that was when I gave it up in February of 96.
And what were the first things that you did? And when you just said, okay, I'm doubling down on this. This is, you know, I could be a stay-at-home mom if this doesn't work out, but I want to be a mom who works from home and builds a huge business at the same time. What were the things that you did when you started to spend your time fully on Carol's Daughter?
I was able to get credit card processing, which for whatever reason at the time I was very nervous about. Like, you have to think back to, you know, that day and time. You know, I was like nervous about, you know, are transactions going to go through, or is this going to be like off-putting to people, which sounds so crazy today because no one carries cash today. But back then, you know, cash was king. and I immediately saw an increase in sales. You know, you would tell somebody what something cost, and then if they saw your MasterCard Visa sign, they were like, "Oh, you take credit cards? Oh, wait, let me go back and get some more." And then they would shop some more. So the fears that I had were allayed one day of sales. Like I was open one Saturday afternoon, and I was like, "Okay, not afraid anymore. I'm good." So that was one thing. My husband and I got the opportunity to purchase our home from my aunt and uncle 2.5 months after Forrest was born. And that was a really, really big deal because it gave us much more space to operate the business and to live. And the house also gave us a little bit of income towards the mortgage because we had a rental property within the house. So that really helped the business to grow significantly. I had more selling space, more production space, and that little bit of ease with having help towards the mortgage, it took some of the pressure off of me having to earn and contribute to the house, and I was able to reinvest. You know, I was able to get a computer and a printer, which of course sounds crazy today. Like, of course you have a computer.
I remember,
but yeah,
first, I mean, yeah, it's a big deal.
Your rich friends had computers, and you would go to their house and borrow their stuff. You know, it wasn't a household appliance the way it is now, and they definitely didn't cost what they cost now. They're much more affordable now. And to make labels, I had to have a laser printer to print my labels, and laser printers back then were really costly. You know, so all of those types of things went into, you know, becoming more established and taking it more seriously. And, you know, then eventually there was product liability insurance, and, you know, you get to the point where you form a corporation and you have employees, and you don't just have your friends helping you do things.
Raising funding can be a miserable process. For Lisa, almost overnight, celebrities became loyal Carol's Daughter customers. Soon after, those devoted celebrity fans became investors, a prominent group comprised of Will Smith, Jada Pinkett-Smith, Jay-Z, and Mary J. Blige. I asked Lisa to talk about how they found her.
Well, in 2003, I met a gentleman named Steve Stout, and Steve at the time was a music executive who had moved over into advertising. And he knew a friend of mine who was also a Carol's Daughter customer, and she was the one who set up our introduction. And Steve became the first person to invest in Carol's Daughter. So we met in October of 2003. And within maybe about a month of, you know, having conversations and meeting and getting to know each other, we pretty much established that we were going to work together and form a partnership, and he was going to invest in the company. It took until August of 2004 for all of that to be finalized and become real. But we worked together, you know, ideating ideas and things for the brand. And Steve reached out to Will and Jada and to Jay-Z about being investors in the brand. And Will and Jada were already using the products, which was great, you know, so they were familiar with it. Jay-Z hadn't used the products. He and Beyonce were together at that time, but most of us didn't know that. That was when, you know, they didn't talk about their relationship. And Beyonce knew about the products, and Jay-Z's mom knew about the products, and he liked the fact that I was from Brooklyn. So when Steve approached him with the idea of being a part of it, you know, he wanted to be a part of it. And Steve and Jay-Z and Steve and Will Smith had done business dealings before, so they trusted him, you know, as a business person. And Mary became an investor later on in 2006. So that's how I ended up with these amazing people that I had so much respect for, separate from being parts of my business to being in business with me.
Lisa Price's story is the stuff that dreams are made of. She took a hobby/side hustle/passion project and turned it into a multi-million-dollar beauty empire. And she was an outsider, so how did she do it? She started with just $100. I think she's magical. We'll have more with Lisa Price in just a minute, but first I want to tell you about Wink. Wink! I'm winking. Can you tell I'm winking right now?
Can you see our winks?
Wink, wink. I can wink with both eyes. So
Really?
whether you're shopping for a friend or have no idea what to get her or him, because guys deserve gifts too,
Yes.
and want to give a great gift to your boss, or maybe we should just, this is what I should get everybody in the office for the holidays. You should think of Wink. It's spelled W-I-N-C, not like an actual wink, but like wine ink, I think is kind of the thought behind it. So Wink is the best way to buy and discover wine. So their top experts select wines matched to your taste. So you take a palate quiz and they send you wines that match your taste profile. And each time you get a box of wines, you go online and you tell them, I like this one more than that one, and then they further refine your taste. So you just get more and more drunk on wine that you like more and more. It's the perfect gift.
Win-win.
It's a wink wink. So all you have to do is push some buttons and open your front door, and ding dong, the best wine you've ever had is on your doorstep. And each month there's new wines. There's no membership fees. You can skip any month, cancel anytime, and shipping is free. So those heavy bottles of wine that you might be lugging home from Trader Joe's, no more. Enter Wink. And if you don't like a bottle they send you, they'll replace it with a bottle that you love, no questions asked. So discover great wine today. Go to trywink.com/girlboss and you'll get $20 off your first shipment. That's trywinc.com/girlboss for $20 off your first shipment. trywink.com/girlboss. So, before we get back to the episode, Jericho, I have a question for you. We're partnering with Lou & Gray on an editorial series called Girl on the Move that takes a deep dive into the lives of creative entrepreneurs in New York and what keeps them ticking on a day-to-day basis. And even though we're here in LA right now, part of your job is to keep a really fresh, creative perspective on the stories we're writing for our audience, right? So, what is something you do on a daily basis that keeps you inspired?
It's a great question, Sophia. Because I'm fairly new to LA, everything still feels so fresh and new, and I'm constantly picking up new inspiration. Like, I love that LA has so much going on. There's a lot of nature too. I like going to Malibu. I like going to Griffith Park. I also just went out to Joshua Tree for the first time recently.
In an Uber.
In an Uber, because I don't drive. And took a little rest from the hustle and bustle, you know? It's very inspiring. What about you?
Well, one of the greatest parts about building Girl Boss has been getting to meet all of these incredible creative women. It's just like an alumni network of women that I've gotten to spend an hour with, like over the course of the last, I guess, 2 years of my life. And it is so enriching for me, and I hope it's enriching for everyone that gets to listen to this podcast. But, you know, what's really striking is that they're just so ambitious and hardworking. And every day I'm inspired by the work ethic and vision of the ladies who come on Girl Boss Radio. And I gotta say, they're all pretty stylish. If you were at the Girl Boss rally, you know, we don't talk about fashion. And I don't know, maybe it's because my last company was a fashion company, but I can't really take credit for it. We have a really stylish community here. And I love that women are taking ownership as far as the conversation of like what's appropriate or business appropriate these days. You know, it's like if I want to show my legs, it's like, doesn't mean that like it's an invitation.
If I have a silver tooth, does it mean that I'm a pirate? I mean, in this case, yes, but also if I work to the office, that's cool too.
It's okay if you're a pirate. I think pirates are a good model for the future of government. Anyway, it's whatever makes you feel good, right? Is what it's about, and that should be your work uniform. So, speaking of which, Lou & Gray is really nailing it on that front. I went to their pop-up at the Grove they had about a month ago.
Oh, yeah?
And touched everything, and I have to say it is the softest, most comfortable, cozy, versatile clothes. I got their turtleneck. I'm like super into my really soft turtleneck, and it's just great to run around town in, but not look like you're wearing something that's actually as comfortable as it is. And you can go straight into dinner or drinks, just swap out your tennis shoes for some pumps, and you have a really beautiful minimal look from Lou & Gray. So head over to louandgray.com. That's LOUANDGREY.com/girlboss to find out what I'm talking about and get some of that incredibly cozy shiz in your life ASAP. Speaking of warm, cozy clothes, it's cold in New York now, and we have Lisa Price from our New York studios here to talk about building Carol's Daughter. So we went from you describing people shopping in your home to Jay-Z investing. So I want to kind of bridge that gap. Where were they discovering your products, and how did you get out of just selling out of your home into the drugstores, or is it drugstore?
We are in drugstores today, but I didn't start out there. So I was selling in my home, the home that I live in now, from 96 until 99. And in August of 1999, I opened up a store in Brooklyn, an actual storefront that wasn't in my home. And the way that Will and Jada found out about the brand was through Jazzy Jeff. So Jazzy Jeff is DJ and worked with Will Smith. And I didn't even realize this at the time, because we had a customer service that would answer our phones after 6 o'clock in the evening, and they were based in Arizona, and they would answer the phones from like 6 until midnight. And then they would fax over the orders when they were done at midnight. And then we came in, to the office in the morning, and the orders would be sitting there, and we'd process the orders. And instead of writing Jeff Towns, they wrote Jess Towns on the invoices. So I was under the impression that there was a woman named Jess in Pennsylvania that really loved our products because she was just buying a lot of stuff. I found out later that that was Jeff Towns, and he was getting things and having his office send them to Jada. And somewhere in 98 or 99 was when I realized that she had been getting things from us through him, and her assistant had reached out to us, and she was in New York at one point, and she actually came into the store and shopped. So having Will and Jada as customers came first before they had invested in the brand. And when Steve became a part of the brand and put this investment team together, I had moved out of my house and I was in a store. So our first store we opened in 1999, and I didn't meet Steve until 2003. And within that 4 years, we had the store, we grew our mail order business, we set up a .com, carolsdaughter.com was an information site at first at the end of 99, and then it was a commerce site by 2000. I had some distribution in stores, but not big stores. I was in, small boutiques and hair salons and kind of mom and pop type places. So I maybe had about 25 or 30 wholesalers that purchased from me and sold the products around the country. I had been featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 2002. And so when Steve became a part of the brand and Will and Jada and those guys invested, the goal was to get the brand to the point where it had more stores and it had some kind of national distribution. And at that time, the distribution came through Sephora at first. So we went into Sephora in 2006. We opened up a store in Harlem in 2005, and we had opened up other stores. Now retail stores aren't as much a part of our strategy because we all know that the landscape for retail has shifted. But that's how we began to build the brand back then.
Going from a solopreneur to managing a team of 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 isn't as simple as just adding heads. With every hire comes more lessons and new management muscles to build. So I asked Lisa to talk to us about her biggest leadership challenges and lessons learned.
Well, the first person that we hired that was a beauty executive was Clarissa Wilson. And she worked on Soft Sheen Carson brand. She worked at L'Oreal for the Mazzani brand. And she was the first GM of Carol's Daughter. But the person that took the company to the place where it was ready for acquisition and great growth and all of that was Richard Dantas. And Richard Dantas had been president of Bliss prior to coming to Carol's Daughter in 2010. So he was there in 2010, and he's the one who took us to acquisition.
Now, Carol's daughter is owned by L'Oreal, but Lisa is still a major part of the brand and the development process. I asked her about knowing when it's time to step away and the difficult decision to let the brand you built land in someone else's hands.
It is very interesting, and it's sometimes challenging because entrepreneurs think very differently. And it's been 3 years now since the acquisition, and I'm still learning new things about it. But I feel like one of the reasons why my path has led me here is I can help to inject an entrepreneurial spirit into an environment that isn't necessarily entrepreneurial, but at its heart really is. So L'Oreal was started from a single person's idea with regard to hair color and has an entrepreneurial spirit at its core, but has to operate as this large corporation, this large global corporation, because that is what it is. But they still have that desire to be more nimble and to be more entrepreneurial. So I feel like that's what I bring to the table, that I can help to inject and infuse into that, along with other founders from other companies that, you know, operate within the system and feel the same way. And then I feel like it gives me the opportunity to see things from the other side. So I was an employee for different companies, and then I was an entrepreneur for 22 years, and then I became an employee again. But I'm like this empowered employee. Like, I don't feel like an employee. I still function like an entrepreneur. I still think like an entrepreneur. And I like that. I like that I am more vocal, more confident. There aren't many conversations that I shy away from, you know, like I did when I was an employee before. So I feel like I've learned through my entrepreneurial process. But had I not had my entrepreneurial career, this wouldn't be where I would be, because I know I'm not a corporate person. I kind of get to be in the system, but not of it. And that's not anything negative against that system, because that system works and it makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. And they're very brilliant and talented people that have amazing careers within corporate organizations. I'm just not one of them.
Yeah.
I'm not a corporate person.
Yeah.
I don't dress like them. I don't talk like them, but I can definitely learn from them, and they can learn from me too.
You guys sold in 2015, but that wasn't before a little bit of hardship just before that. Is that true?
It's not something that I can go into great detail about, but what we did was to file bankruptcy under one entity of the company. So there was an entity of the company that held the retail stores. At the time, we had 7 retail stores, 2 of which were profitable. The other 5 were not. And they had not been for a number of years. We tried all different kinds of things: staffing, merchandising, different hours, promotions, events, etc. It's just the writing on the wall when it comes to where retail is now, that, you know, we could see it shifting.
I've been there.
And we could see sales shifting to online versus brick and mortar. And there were still leases on these properties, and we needed to be able to extricate ourselves from it. So it wasn't that the entire company was in trouble. It was this portion of the company was draining the main part of the company. And we needed to let that go, because we had tried many, many different things to get those stores to work, and it just wasn't working. So that was the way out. And we exercised that right. But it was really a business decision. It wasn't like everything's falling apart and we're about to go under. And, you know, that's not what it was. But it was no longer smart to keep those 5 stores open, because we had literally tried everything.
So what's next for you?
Well, I still have a contract with L'Oreal, and I'm still, you know, loving, nurturing my brand. And I feel like I am teaching her to other people, because there will come a time when I want to retire at some point. I'm not going to want to work forever. And I want to know that I'm leaving her in really capable hands, and that everybody understands her and who she is and how she was raised and what her values are. So I'm very, very mindful and careful that I'm passing that information along and teaching what it is to know and be Carol's daughter. But I will have some time to be able to dedicate to people. I feel like I'm the accidental entrepreneur. That's one of the things that I said during our talk when you had your rally. It wasn't something that I planned on doing. I didn't think it was something that I would ever do. I didn't even think it was something that I was good at. And I know that I'm not the only person who feels that way. So I like being able to be that voice and sometimes that mentor for people who are like, you know what, I don't have this all figured out, but I think I have a really great idea, and I have all of this passion, and I have all of this love for this. Do you think I can make a go at this? And being that person to be able to say, yeah, you can. You don't have to have it all figured out. You know, you need a plan. You need the passion. You know, you can't be willy-nilly, but you don't have to have every single step figured out before you venture out and do something. So I want to be that person that helps to facilitate that process within people and helps them to rediscover themselves and not be afraid to change career paths and do something completely different. I have a friend who started out as an attorney and had a hobby of making soaps and used to make soaps to sort of like calm down and de-stress. And then she decided, you know, maybe I want to sell these soaps. And, you know, of course, her family thought she was crazy because she was an attorney. Like, what do you mean you're going to sell soap? And her desire to sell soap actually pushed her into this area where she started to see, well, people who have these cottage industries, they have a hard time getting product liability insurance. They have a hard time getting medical insurance and life insurance. They don't know where to go for contract manufacturing. And she ended up forming something that's called the Indie Beauty Network. And she helps small cottage industries develop their business. So she still makes soap for fun, but she has this whole other passion in helping, you know, women set up these independent businesses and choose to be small. Not everyone wants to be, you know, big and be acquired. And she helps them operate and find insurance and things like that. So I don't know if that's what I will do in setting up a beauty network per se, but I just feel like there's so much that I've learned, and I've had support, and I've had the honor of hearing other people's voices, other women's voices who were figuring it out, yourself included. And I want to be able to be that for other people.
So there's a couple questions I ask everybody who comes on Girl Boss Radio. And one of them is redefining success. So what does success mean for you personally? Because it's different for everybody. And it's not just about, you know, building a company or selling your company or making tons of money or necessarily even just loving your job. Those are things that we would all love to do or have. But Lisa, what do you think success means for you?
For me, it meant and means finding my voice and learning how to use it. You know, everything else was important, but I couldn't get to the place of being able to sell my brand and have that moment of, wow, I built a brand and I sold it, if I had not found my voice and learned how to properly use it within my own company. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you've ever been in business for yourself, you know it's possible to lose your voice within your company and to be confused and to not know when you're supposed to speak up versus not speak up. And, you know, how do I get people to hear me? And how do I raise my hand and admit that I don't understand the last 12 things that you just said and I need to understand them? So I wouldn't have gotten to the point of acquisition without that 2 to 2.5 years of work that I needed to do on myself in understanding, in learning, in speaking up, in finding my voice, in not letting fear stop me from doing things. So to me, that's the ultimate success, was I found my voice and I've never lost it since.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Before she left, I asked Lisa Price to tell us about her most recent girl boss moment.
My most recent girl boss moment is this year going through the process of having foot surgery, which laid me up for 3 months. What I was learning from that was to learn how to be still and to learn how to let go and to operate from a distance and how things were going to flow and everything was going to be okay. And I did learn those things. But now that I'm back into my routine and my life, but I'm still recovering and healing because it takes about a 9 months to a year to heal from foot surgery, I have to make self-care a priority. Like if I don't do my stretches and if I don't do my physical therapy exercises, walking becomes very difficult. So I am learning through taking care of myself in this recovery to really put myself first. And that's something that's been a struggle my whole life. I'm learning self-care. So I guess that is reclaiming my time, but I literally put myself first on the list for the first time ever.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
So nice to talk to you, I guess, one-on-one for the first time. Thank you so much for coming on Girl Boss Radio. Follow us at Girl Boss. Pretty much everywhere social media is found. On Facebook, we're Girl Boss Media. And go to girlboss.com to read the best of what Jericho and our amazing team are putting together. And join us next week for more of the same. And subscribe. Please subscribe. Thanks.